Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi Bava Basra Lamed Aleph. We begin right on top with a story. We have a conflict, an argument between Ruvain, who claims that this property belonged to Avoisai, my ancestors. It's an ancestral plot. It came from my father, Be'erusha, right? He inherited it to me, and it's mine. Likewise, Shimon, his opponent, is claiming likewise. It's his family plot. Okay, Hi Isi Sadi. Ruvain brings witnesses, Davasahi, that in fact it belonged to his family. V'hai Isi Sadi, the Ochlashnecha Zoko. Shimon can't locate any Edim to prove his claim. Rather, he has Edim that he was sitting there for 3 years. He has a chazak on the property. So what now? Amar Rabba. So Rabba says, look, we have to trust him and accept his claim, Shimon's claim, that in fact it belongs to him. He got it from his father. Why? Because if he was lying, he would have chosen a better lie. Amar Rabba, Malay Lushaka, why would he have to pretend? Well, it belonged to my parents. He didn't have to go there and confront Ruvain's Eidim, right? He didn't have to do that. He could have simply said, yeah, it was yours, Mr. Ruvain, but you sold it to me. Look, I'm here 3 years. I don't need to produce any documentation to prove my ownership at this point. Once I have 3 years of chazaka, right? Iboy, if he would have wished to lie, he could have lied better. Amalei could have said, I purchased it from you, Mr. Ruvain. I'm there for 3 years. So that lends him integrity. It gives him credibility in his argument, in his claim, that in fact it was his parents' plot. Abaye responds to Rabbah, it's all good and well, but the fact is he is going against 2 Edim that are testifying on Ruvain's behalf. Abaye mali l'shaker b'mokaim Edim lo yamrinan. A mali l'shaker arrangement, this type of credibility setup, this migu. Migu means I could have, since. He could have lied better. That's all good and well, but not when it's against 2 Edim who are opposing his argument, who are contradicting his claim, because they're saying it was Ruvain's family's plot, not yours. So you can't believe Shimon that in fact it belonged to his parents. Okay, and Rashbam says that in fact that's how we were going to proceed. Rabbah was moided to Abaye. Rabbah agreed that in fact the property goes to Ruvain. But we're not done yet. There's another phase to the story. So Shimon turns around and he adds, he modifies his claim. He says to Ruvain, look, correct, actually, you have a point. Come to think of it, this property belonged to your family. V'zavinta minach. But I purchased it from you, or from them. So why then did I initially claim that it was my parents, my family plot? Well, I just meant to say, it was a metaphor, just an expression. I meant to say I'm so confident, I'm so secure in this property. The samach li Allah. I'm so safe and secure in this property. Kedavasi. My hold, my ownership, my possession is so absolute on this property, as though it was a family plot, as though it came to me from my ancestors. But of course, I didn't mean that. When I said it was I meant to say, it's so much mine. Rashi says, I'm soymech muftach, Rashbam, al karkazu, as though it came to me from my avoisai, because I'm there many years, no issues, no challengers, so it's as though it's been mine forever. That's what I meant to say. It's just an expression. Do we believe him or not? Because basically he's going back on his word. He sees that we don't accept, we can't accept, his argument, his taina that it belonged to his parents, because we have Edim against him. And even the mali l'shakar, the migu, doesn't help him. So the question is, when he revises and says, well, I meant, it's just absolutely mine. As though it belonged to my ancestors. Can we trust that or not? Tayin, can a person present a claim, and come back and revise his claim in a way that which he's pretty much contradicting his earlier claim? Can he do that? Or perhaps you can't do that. Once you've presented your argument, you can't go back, revise it, fix it, and modify it. We have a machlikas. Ula Amar, yeah, he can do that. In this case, you can go with his second edition. Rashbam says he's not really undoing his. He's makrish ketzas. There's a slight contradiction. You need to revise his initial claim. It's not literal. It's just symbolic. I didn't really mean it's my parents. I meant it's as though. So in this type of situation, we can accept his latest version, which modifies and revises the earlier version. Nardoi Amri, they hold no. Once you've said your piece, you can't go back on it. Now, even though Ula says you can, he would agree in the following two cases that you cannot. If initially Shimon, in response to Reuben's claim of ancestral property, would have said, no, it was my family's plot and not yours. So he's clearly articulating that he is negating Reuven's claim of ownership. In this case, if he clearly said it was not your parents' property, he can't go back and say, I just meant to say that I purchased it, it's so mine as though it was mine. No, because here he's clearly contradicting himself. It's more than just a revision. Number two, in the following case as well, we don't accept any revisions. Let's say he was standing in the Bezdin and he presented his claims, his arguments, and he failed to make any revisions. Then he went out for a break and he came back. And suddenly he's enlightened. He has new additions, he has new revisions. He came from the outside and he's coming to modify his initial claim. Somebody tipped you off outside. You cannot come back and modify. My time, you know why? Somebody out there educated him, tipped him off, and advised him to make this revision. So all the Ula holds that typically you can revise, but not in these two cases. And likewise, on the flip side, Umoidi Nahardoi, even though Nahardoi said you cannot revise, but Umoidu Nahardoi, they would agree in the following two cases that you can. Heichada Amalei, suppose his revision is as follows. Shalavoisai Shalakchom Avisecha. He comes back and he says, when I said it was Avoisai, it was my parents' property, I meant to say it was theirs, but they purchased it from your parents. So here he's not really contradicting his earlier statement, which was Shalavoisai. Yeah, Shalavoisai, but they purchased it from your Avoisai. Right? As per the Edom that you have that belong to your parents. So yeah, I agree, I concede, but my ancestors purchased it from yours. In this case, that's okay. The Chayzer B'Toin, we accept this revision because he's not really contradicting himself at all. He's just adding and explaining his earlier statement. Number two, or let's say in a case where the litigants were discussing the case outside of the Bezdin in an informal setting, and he failed to add this point, this revision. But when he came into the Bezdin, he got up and he formally declared and he presented his arguments and his claims, and now he explained that, it was really this, it was really that. He revises his initial claim, but the initial claim was set outside of Bezdin. In this case, we accept the revision. The Chayzer B'Toin, he can do that. You know why? My time, you know why? Avid Inish, it is very common practice for a person to lay magli tanase el beidin. He'll only reveal the true essence of his claim to the Bezdin. He doesn't want his opponent to be prepared in advance of the court case, so he won't really specify or express all the intricate details of his claim. He'll just give a general, statement, but in the Bezdin, he's going to expound and detail the claim So it's not considered a modification at all. Rather, this is the initial presentation of his claim. So, in summation, he made a statement which is problematic. Can he come back and revise it? Ula says, no. Nardori say yes. Sorry, the other way. Ula says yeah. Nardori say no. And we have two exceptions to both shittas. In other words, we have two cases where Ula would agree he cannot, and Nardori would agree that you could. Amar Meimar, Ano, I'm from the Nardo people, but still I hold that you can do this. Usvirli the Toin v'choiz v'toin, I hold that you can slightly revise an earlier claim. V'ilchas, and that's the conclusion. Toyin v'choiz v'toin. Here comes another story. Reuben has a claim on a property, claiming that it's his father's. It came from his father. Shimon says it was my father's, and he was meirish to me. He inherited it to me. Okay, in terms of proofs, Reuben brings along witnesses that in fact it was his father's property. Number two, and also that he was there for 3 years. So this fully substantiates his ownership. But his opponent came back with his Edom. Shimon brings Edom likewise that contradict Reuben's Edom. That in fact Shimon was in possession of this property during those same 3 years as Reuben allegedly had a chazaka. So we have a total collision in terms of the chazaka aspect of this argument, right? But in terms of Reuben's other proof of ownership, the Edom that are proving that are testifying that it was his father's, they're uncontested, they're unchallenged. Shimon has no response to that. So that pair of Edom is somewhat contradicted in terms of their claim that Reuben had a chazaka because there is another pair opposing them. So there's a clash on the chazaka aspect, but not on the other part. Amar Rav Nachman, okay, uki achila lebade achila. In terms of the achila, meaning the chazaka element, we have a contradiction. We have a clash between both teams of Edom. So we can't really deal with that. It's mukhash. It's contradictory. You can't know which one's right. So you have to just sort of ignore that part. And what remains? So now we grant the property to Reuben because even if we set aside the chazaka element of his claim, but he still has cheskas avasa. He's proven that it was his father's. So he gets it on that account. Amalei Rabba, so Rabba responds to Rav Nachman, what do you mean? These Edom were contradicted. True, they only contradicted on one element and not on the other, but maybe they're liars. And Edom Pesulim are not meant to be trusted at all. Their testimony has been contradicted by the other pair. And if that's the case, one of these pairs are presumed to be liars, so you can't really believe any one of these anymore for anything that they say. So Rav Nachman responded, no, you can split their testimony. True. In terms of the achila, the chazaka element, we have a contradiction. But Bava Basra, in terms of the ancestral claim, was there then any contradiction? Right? Everybody, all parties seem to be in agreement that it belonged to his fathers. So on that account, they could be trusted. So we have an interesting machlokes. We have Edom which are mukhashim, have been contradicted by another pair. Can we still trust them regarding something which is uncontested? Something which is outside of the contradictory element? Or do we say, no, once they've been tainted, their integrity has been questioned and challenged, you can't trust them anymore. Rav Nachman says, yeah. Rabba says, no. Says the Gemara, Lema, Rabba, Rav Nachman, perhaps this discussion between Rabba and Rav Nachman, is really linked to a similar machlokes between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. The Itmaz we learned. Beis Kitei Edom. You have two pairs of witnesses, Hamakhishe Zozu, contradicting each other on the facts. So one of these pairs are liars. You just don't know which one. Amar Rav Huna, still, although we can no longer trust them here, because we don't know which pair to trust. But in terms of a different type of case, in a different setting, in a different bezdin, in a different court case, they have ne'emanos until you have established that this pair of Edom are Edom Pesulim, are disqualified, are liars. You can't know which one it is. So you have to believe them. Rashbam says a person has a cheskas kashrus. A person is presumed to be kosher, right? Innocent until proven guilty. So each pair independently ought to be trusted in a different case. If they were to be testifying in a different case, Zuba b'fnei atzmo midah. This pair, should they come testify in a different case, we accept their testimony, and likewise the opposing pair as well. Zuba b'fnei atzmo midah. If they come and testify, we accept their testimony. Rav Chizda Amar, no. We know for a fact that one of these pairs are apostle. We can't trust them anymore at all. Now in this case, and nor in any other case. Ba'adi Sadi Shakri, with reference to these liars, these lying Edom, Lamali, why would I be involved in them? Basically, they have no integrity. So it's a similar machlekes to our story as well. Leimor Rav Nachman, so perhaps Rav Nachman, who in our story says, well, we can't trust them now because they're contradicted, but there's an element that's outside the contradictory part. We accept it as fact. We trust them. So he holds, Leimor Rav Nachman, we would say Rav Nachman goes like who? Damak Rav Huna, who says they still maintain their trustworthiness in a different context. Whereas Rav who says we totally negate their integrity, is gone like Rav Chizda. They no longer have ne'emanos. Says the Gemara, Alibud Rav Chizda, well, in a way you're right. According to Rav Chizda, Kuli Amali Pligi, nobody would argue. Meaning, Rav Chizda says that in the case where the two Edom are contradicting each other, the Edom no longer have any ability to testify, not in this case, nor in any other case. So even in Eidos Acheres, a totally different court case, we don't trust them anymore. By the way, Rashi said because a svara for that would be because you can't be moitzi maman misafa, you can't force a person to pay when you can't really prove your case. You can't use Edom that are questionable. Okay, so that's his opinion. So certainly in our case, in our story, where the hakchasha, the contradictory part, was the chazaka part, right? We have conflicting accounts in terms of who had the chazaka. So we can't just cast that aside and say, okay, we'll just focus on the other part, the other element of their testimony, which is that it belonged to Reuven's father. No, because within this case, they were contradicted. So certainly, if Rav Chizda says you can't trust Edom Mukhashim, Edom who were contradicted, you can't trust them anytime. Certainly not in the same case that they were contradicted. So Rav Nachman, who says we trust the Edom here, that it was his father's, will certainly not work with Rav Chizda. His opinion certainly disagrees with Rav Chizda's opinion. There's no question about that. Ki pligi alibi Rav Huna. The question is regarding Rav Huna. Rav Huna was the one who says that, yeah, even Edom who are mukhashim, if they go and testify in a different case, right? So we can trust them until we prove them to be Edom Pesulim. Right? So we have Reuven and Shimon contradicting Levi and Yehuda. So in this story, that's it. They both cancel each other out. But if Reuven and Shimon should approach a bezdin in a different court case, a different issue, we believe them. So now, according to Rav Huna, what would happen in our case? Where the two pairs of Edom collided with reference to the chazaka part, but Reuven and Shimon are still standing unopposed with reference to Reuven's parents owning the property. So on the one hand, it's an uncontested element. On the other hand, it's within the context of the same, litigation process, which they have already been tainted in. That's the issue. So keep the alibud Rafun. Machlokes between Rav and Rav Nachman in our sugya can revolve around to what extent does Rav Huna accept this type of questionable testimony? Rav Nachman, Rav Huna. Rav Nachman says, look, I'm going like Rav Huna. The Edom maintain their integrity. and therefore we can believe them on the part that's not been contradicted, the part that's still uncontested, i.e., that this plot belonged to Reuven's family. But Rava responds and says, no, no, I maintain that even Rav Huna, who would still give them a measure of credibility, that's only in reference to a different case. But in this very case that they've already been tainted on, but in this same edus, no. If they're mukha, we can't. That's it. We just cancel them. So in our story where Reuven had edus that he had chazaka, and that edus on the chazaka was cancelled out by the opposing edus, claiming that Shimon had chazaka. So Reuven's edim, we call them Reuven and Shimon. So his edim are totally cancelled out. We can't reckon with him anymore in this court case. Okay, so the story wasn't over yet, because in fact it appeared that Rashbam says we paskin like Rav Nachman, and Reuven took possession of the property. So what happened? Shimon came back after losing the case. Hadar Aisi Sadi Davasi. Oh, guess what? He produced two edim that in fact it belonged to his family. So now we have a full-blown hakechasha. Reuven has edim, it was his father's, and that he had chazaka, and Shimon has the same thing on his side. What do we do now? So at this point, says the Rashbam, we can no longer grant Reuven ownership because it's totally contradicted. It's totally mukhash. It's totally cancelled out. Rather, we say kol da'olam gavar. It's a free for all. Whoever takes it, whoever manages to grab it, he gets it. We can't get involved in this case. So Shimon came back with edim that belonged to his parents. What do we do now? Omar Rav Nachman, okay. Anan achsinei, we put Reuven into the property. Anan askinei. Okay, so we'll go back and remove him. We have to undo what we did. We can't be concerned about Bezdin's reputation. Rashi says people are going to start laughing and mocking the Bezdin. Look, one day they're doing this, one day that. They're reversing themselves. Got to do what you got to do. Got to do the right thing. So we undo what we did. We remove Reuven from the property. Masav Rava. So Rava had a kasha. Some say it was Rabbi Zeira. We have to concern ourselves with the honor and integrity of the Bezdin. We can't just reverse a decision like that. Shnaim Omer Meis, we have a raya from a halacha as follows. Two edim came and testified that this woman's husband passed away and she can remarry. Shnaim Omer Meis, and two edim come and contradict the account, claiming that he didn't die. Or Shnaim Omer Nizgash, two edim come and say that she got divorced. Shnaim Omer Nizgash, and we have two edim opposing. No, she was never divorced. So she's in limbo, she can't get married. But if she marries, we can't force her out. Because it's sort of like it's an unclear situation, nothing's been proven either way, so we just leave it status quo. Rabbi Menachem, Rabbi Yossi, he says no. Teitze, she has to leave her new husband until she can prove that she's eligible to remarry. Amar Menachem, Rabbi Yossi, when do I say she has to leave? It's the second pair of Edim who contradicted the first pair of Edim who allowed her to marry. Came before she executed that right, before she married. So she heard about this problematic situation and she insisted and she remarried. Then we force her out. Let's say she married right away when she got the green light from the Bezdin, and then post-marriage the second pair showed up to make trouble. So in this case we just leave it status quo. And Rashi and Rashbam explains, because of this point of Zilusa de Bedina, we don't want to undermine the authority of the Bezdin. Once she's there, she's there. Okay, so it's a kasha on Rav Nachman who says we don't reckon with this factor of Zilusa de Bedina. Amar Leister, Rav Nachman says, you have a point. Initially I figured I'm going to proceed and reverse the decision of the Bezdin. I'm not concerned about, but now that you've asked me a question from this halacha, and disproven my notion, Va'isvan Rav Hamnuna Besurya, and Rav Hamnuna in Surya also asked me the same type of question. So basically, I'm going to go back on my decision. I'm not going to go and reverse the ruling of the Bezdin. I'm going to leave it as is, status quo, in order to protect the authority of the Bezdin. Nofak avad uvda. Oh, after he sort of made this admission, guess what? Rav Nachman goes out and he follows through on his decision. He reverses the Bezdin's decision. He takes Reuben off the property, which is in direct contradiction to what he just said, that he's not going to do that. So so the observer figured, Savar, Tuusi, it was just a mistake. Tuusi biyadi, he's making a mistake. V'lo, he says, actually, no. He knew exactly what he was doing. Ela mishum the tali bash, the ravi, ash the ravi, the big ropes. Okay, so basically he was hanging himself on big ropes. It's just an expression. He was relying on very great authorities, big tanoim, which are going to be discussed soon in the Gemara, as Hashem coming up tomorrow, which all work with this point that no, we're not choishish for zilus the beidina. We've got to do what's right, even if it involves reversing our former decision. And therefore, Rav Nachman followed through and removed Reuven from the property on account of the new development of the new Edom that showed up. This none, as we see in the Mishnah, and Bez Hashem will proceed tomorrow and conclude this discussion. So in today's daf we had a story of Ze'im Mishal Avoisai, Ze'im Mishal Avoisai, we had a question of a Migu connected to Edom, Toyin v'chayzer v'toyin, Machlaikis. Then we had the story of the colliding Edom who cancel each other out. Do they still have credibility? Yes, no, at a Machlaikis. And then the last development was that this fellow brought his own Edom, which sort of canceled the whole deal. And the question was, can we undo what we did? Initially, Rav Nachman says, yes. And then we had a kash on that. And then Rav Nachman insisted on doing that. And it was based on some great authorities, which we're going to see tomorrow. All the best to you and Atzlachah.